In a bustling, modern city filled with gleaming skyscrapers and crowded streets, a young woman named Alma moved to the city with dreams of a better life. Alma was raised in a small village by her grandmother, who had taught her the value of honesty, hard work, and respect. She arrived in the city with little more than a suitcase and her grandmother's wise words, determined to find work and make a future for herself. Alma soon found a job as a housemaid in the mansion of a wealthy socialite named Madam Ijeoma. Madam Ijeoma was known across the city not only for her riches but also for her impeccable fashion, her high-profile events, and her cold-hearted demeanor. Her mansion was a sight to behold: grand columns at the entrance, marble floors, high ceilings with chandeliers, and every room filled with priceless art and luxury items. To the outside world, Madam Ijeoma was elegant and glamorous, but behind closed doors, her true nature was far from kind. From the first day, Alma felt the weight of Madam Ijeoma's expectations. Ijeoma's commands were sharp, her eyes cold, and her patience thin. Alma's tasks were unending: scrubbing floors, dusting every corner, ironing clothes until they were perfectly smooth, and preparing meals exactly to Madam's taste. No detail was too small to escape Madam's scrutiny, and each day, she would find something to criticize. "Alma," Madam would say in her icy tone, "how many times must I tell you to arrange my shoes by color, not by style? Must I do everything myself?" Despite Madam's harsh words, Alma continued to work diligently, hoping that her efforts would eventually earn her respect or, at the very least, a bit of kindness. She reminded herself of her grandmother's wisdom and tried to focus on her goals, saving up as much as she could to one day start her own small business. Her dream was simple but powerful. She wanted to open a little shop where she could sell homemade crafts and baked goods, bringing a piece of her village into the heart of the city. But as the weeks went by, Madam Ijeoma's treatment grew worse. She demanded more and more from Alma, often making her work late into the night, cleaning up after extravagant parties filled with laughter, loud music, and endless glasses of wine. Madam would have friends over, and they would gossip about people they disliked, reveling in their wealth and privilege, unaware or unconcerned that Alma was listening as she worked quietly in the background. One evening, after an especially long day, Alma overheard Madam Ijeoma laughing with a group of her friends. They were talking about the people who worked for them: housemaids, drivers, gardeners, as if they were objects, tools rather than human beings. One of Madam's friends, a woman with a heavy jeweled necklace, smirked and said, "Oh, they're all the same. Desperate, willing to do anything for a bit of money. I make mine scrub my floors twice a day." Madam Ijeoma laughed. "Oh, you have no idea. Alma here thinks she'll somehow earn my favor by working hard. But why should I care? They come and go. None of them matter." Alma felt a sting of betrayal and sadness, her heart sinking as she heard these words. She had believed that her dedication would be recognized, that maybe, just maybe, Madam Ijeoma would see her as more than just a servant. She clenched her fists, but held back tears, determined not to show weakness. That night, she made a silent vow to herself. She would not be broken by Madam Ijeoma's cruelty. She would endure until she could leave with her head held high, having saved enough to start her own life. Over time, Alma became close to the other workers in the mansion, especially the cook, an elderly man named Mr. Tun, who had been with Madam Ijeoma for many years. He was kind and gentle, often slipping Alma extra food and giving her words of encouragement. "Don't let her get to you, Alma," he would say with a knowing smile. "She treats everyone this way, even those who have been loyal to her for decades. Remember, this is only temporary. Hold on to your dreams." One evening, Madam Ijeoma hosted one of her most lavish parties yet. The house was filled with influential guests, politicians, celebrities, and business magnates, all laughing, mingling, and toasting to one another's success. As Alma was cleaning in the hallway, she noticed Madam Ijeoma speaking to a man in a dark suit who had a severe, calculating look. Their conversation seemed tense, their voices hushed, but she caught fragments of their words: payments, behind schedule, consequences. Alma couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that there was more to Madam Ijeoma's wealth than met the eye. But before she could dwell on it, Madam noticed her presence and snapped, "Alma, stop standing around and get back to work. These floors won't clean themselves." Late that night, After the guests had left and the house was silent, Alma was cleaning up in the living room when she found an envelope on the floor. It had fallen from one of the guests' pockets and was partially open, revealing a large sum of money. Alma's heart raced. She knew that if Madam Ijeoma found it, she would claim it without question. But the thought of taking it herself felt wrong, a betrayal of her principles. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind, "Integrity is worth more than gold." With a heavy heart, she placed the envelope on Madam's desk, knowing that honesty was more important than any temptation. In the morning, Madam discovered the money and, surprisingly, called Alma into her office. For a brief moment, Alma hoped that she might receive a word of gratitude. Instead, Madam's eyes narrowed as she accused her of taking some of the money. "You must have seen this as an opportunity," Madam said coldly. "Don't think I don't know your kind. Always waiting for a chance to take what isn't yours." Alma was shocked, her heart pounding with both anger and sorrow. "Madam, I would never." But Madam cut her off, dismissing her with a wave of her hand. "Spare me your excuses. Get out and get back to work." As Alma left the room, her heart heavy with disappointment, she realized that no amount of honesty or dedication would ever change Madam Ijeoma's view of her. In that moment, she knew that her time in the mansion was limited. She would work, save every coin, and leave as soon as she could, freeing herself from Madam Ijeoma's toxic grasp. That evening, Mr. Tund found Alma sitting alone in the kitchen, her eyes filled with unshed tears. He placed a comforting hand on her shoulder, understanding without words. "Some people will never see beyond their own shadows, Alma," he said softly. "But you, my dear, are destined for more. Hold on. Your time will come." In the weeks that followed, Alma continued to endure Madam Ijeoma's mistreatment, but she no longer let it define her. She began to quietly plan her escape, working with a quiet determination that even Madam's harshest words could not shake. Short YouTube description. In this modern African tale, young Alma faces the trials of working for a ruthless, wealthy woman in the city. Despite Madam Ijeoma's cruelty, Alma's unwavering integrity and dreams of a brighter future keep her spirit alive. Will she find the strength to overcome her struggles? In the weeks that followed, Alma continued to endure Madam Ijeoma's mistreatment, but she no longer let it define her. She began to quietly plan her escape, working with a quiet determination that even Madam's harshest words could not shake. The days grew longer as Alma continued her silent rebellion within the grand walls of Madam Ijeoma's mansion. She endured the sharp words, the endless chores, and the degrading comments with a new sense of purpose. Each night, she counted the coins she saved, knowing that her dream of escaping Madam's household grew closer with every penny. But in this last stretch of her journey, the trials awaiting her would test her strength like never before. One chilly morning, Alma was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when Mr. Tund approached her, looking concerned. He spoke in a hushed tone, his eyes darting around to ensure they weren't overheard. "Alma, I overheard Madam speaking to that man again, the one from the party. It seems she's in deep trouble with her business. They're saying she owes a substantial debt, and they're giving her only a few weeks to pay it off." Alma's heart quickened. She knew Madam Ijeoma had always enjoyed a life of luxury, but she never imagined that her wealth might be dwindling. In a strange way, she felt a pang of sympathy for the woman. Despite all her cruelty, Madam was facing challenges of her own. But her thoughts were interrupted as Madam entered the kitchen, her eyes narrowed in suspicion. "Alma, what are you two whispering about?" Madam's voice sliced through the air. "We were just discussing the breakfast preparations, Madam," Mr. Tund replied calmly, giving Alma a reassuring glance. Madam huffed and swept out of the room, her presence leaving an uneasy silence. Once she was gone, Mr. Tund leaned closer to Alma. "Be cautious, Alma. When people are desperate, they can do reckless things." Days later, Madam Ijeoma's desperation became evident. She started selling off valuable items from her mansion, the beautiful vases, the paintings, even some of the lavish furniture. Alma and the other workers would watch silently as movers came to haul away the once prized possessions. Madam became even more irritable, snapping at the slightest mistake, her anger bubbling over onto anyone nearby. One evening, after a grueling day, Madam summoned Alma to her office. The room looked almost bare, with many of the fine decorations removed. Madam sat behind her large desk, her sharp eyes fixed on Alma. "I hear you're saving up your wages, Alma," she said, her voice icy but with a strange, almost desperate edge. "Why would someone like you need savings? Aren't I giving you enough here, a roof over your head, food to eat?" Alma held her ground, meeting Madam's gaze. "Yes, Madam, I am grateful for the work, but I have dreams of my own. I plan to leave here one day and start my own business." Madam scoffed, a bitter smile twisting her lips. "People like you don't rise above their station, Alma. Don't deceive yourself. You'll always need someone like me to give you purpose." Her words stung, but Alma had heard enough. She knew her worth, and she knew that her dreams were not foolish. Taking a deep breath, she replied, "I believe that we are all more than the roles we're given, Madam. Someday, I'll prove that to myself." Madam's face hardened. She dismissed Alma with a wave, muttering under her breath. As Alma walked back to her small room that night, she felt a surge of determination. She was not going to be broken by Madam's words or actions. Her spirit was stronger than that. The turning point came when Madam's financial troubles reached their peak. One morning, Alma entered the kitchen to find the mansion in chaos. Movers were swarming in, taking away almost everything of value. Madam stood at the center of it all, her face pale with shock and fury. She was nearly unrecognizable, a shadow of the powerful woman she once was. In her desperation, Madam turned on Alma and the other workers, accusing them of stealing, of being ungrateful. "All of you are leeches," she screamed. "You've taken advantage of me, and this is what I get in return, ruin." The other workers, too frightened to speak, remained silent. But Alma could hold her tongue no longer. She stepped forward, her voice steady. "We have only ever done our work, Madam. We have given you our loyalty, but you've never seen it because you don't see us as people. This ruin is not our doing." Madam fell silent, her anger momentarily quenched by Alma's words. For the first time, she seemed to truly see Alma, not just as a housemaid, but as a person. But the moment quickly passed. She looked away, bitterness clouding her gaze once more, and stormed out of the room, leaving the workers to clear the mess left behind. Alma continued to work in the mansion for a few more days, but the end was near. With her savings finally enough to set her dreams in motion, she decided it was time to say goodbye. On her last day, she walked through the rooms, now empty of the grandeur they once held, and felt a mixture of relief and sadness. She had grown within these walls, had endured and learned, but she was ready for something new. Before she left, she found Mr. Tund in the kitchen. They embraced, both feeling the weight of the farewell. "Remember, Alma," he said, his voice warm and full of pride, "you are destined for great things. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." With one last look at the mansion, Alma walked away, her heart light with hope and her mind filled with plans for her new life. She knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she had proven to herself that she had the strength and courage to overcome whatever challenges came her way. And as for Madam Ijeoma, rumors swirled in the city that she had lost everything and was forced to move to a small, humble apartment far from the glamorous life she once knew. Some said she had learned humility, while others claimed she remained as bitter as ever. But Alma didn't concern herself with Madam's fate. She was free, ready to build the future she had dreamed of.